So I don't know how many of you actually are aware of this, but all of us matchmakers kind of work together. Well, most of us, not all. A lot of us like to collaborate, we support one another, we send people back and forth. I know it might sound crazy because in your industry, if you're listening, you might say, wow, we're all super competitive. But because we're all here to spread more love and bring that into the world, we like to work together. So today, I'm super excited to have a fellow matchmaker on the podcast today. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you, Abby. I'm so happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Abby Rosenblum, founder of The Social Modern Matchmaking and your host of Ghosted, a podcast about making dating easy and fun again so you can find your boo. Get it? We'll talk with dating experts, coaches, and real clients of mine and single people from around the world. Stick around for corny jokes, dating advice, and deep dives into the psychology behind finding love.
And we're going to have a lot of fun talking about how you got into matchmaking, what your experience has been like. There aren't that many of us in the world, so it's fun to highlight it on this podcast.
Well, we're a growing group of people. I started my company in Los Angeles 20 years ago, and back then we definitely had zero collaboration. Never would you see a situation where Abby in Denver would be working with Julie in Los Angeles on an introduction. And now it happens regularly. So that's great. And lots of matchmakers have come about because of the Matchmaking Institute, Global Love Institute, all of the different conferences that happen. There's a Matchmakers Alliance now where people like us can go play in Cancun and have fun and share ideas. This is all brand new, didn't exist 20 years ago.
Right. And so that's what I'm really curious too, to get more info from you on and share with people. But first, I want to make sure I do your proper intro and give you the shout outs that you deserve. So, everybody, Julie Ferman has been bringing couples together, like we said, for 30 years, based in both LA and Santa Fe, New Mexico. She serves men and women of all ages. She also has her own podcast, which I got to be on, Cupid's Coach Podcast. And she has produced over 500 singles events. Whoa, that's a lot. And has been responsible for over 1,200 happy couples. I hope to hit that number one day.
You will. If you keep yourself sane and enjoy this work, starting at your age, the tender young age of in your 20s, you are going to have so many decades to be able to enjoy this work. Now, a lot of those marriages, though, were through my husband's company. I got into this, you know this, Abby, but your listeners don't yet. I went to a dating service when I was just shy of 30 years old, seriously seeking marriage and kids, and I didn't know for sure I was going to be able to have kids. So I was really motivated. And back then we didn't have the internet. We didn't have JDate or Match.com or eHarmony or Bumble or any of that. All you could do back then was place personal ads in the newspaper.
Whoa.
I know. So I moved back to my hometown of St. Louis. I was working for the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company, and I didn't want to put an ad in the personals that maybe my old boyfriend from high school might see, or my history teacher from high school.
Oh, no.
I was dying. So I saw ads for dating services and I thought, okay, let's go ahead and investigate. So I did. I looked at all the different agencies and I went into the one that was the video dating service. And the guy who sold me that membership for $1,450 is Mr. Gil Ferman, the man I'm married to. So that's how it started. And then I ended up working for him. Yes, it's a funny story. I ended up working for him, and his company was a big one. They had Kansas City and St. Louis, and they did a whole lot of membership sales. So a lot of those early relationships came from his Great Expectations offices. And then I started my company in 2002 in LA. And I know of about 300 or so couples that have made it off into either marriage or living together or something. So my company's boutique, kind of like yours. I don't do volume, never more than about 10 clients at a time. So I'm not really all about the numbers right now. It's more about quality than quantity.
Always. And it is funny. I'm sure you run into this. People are always obsessed with the numbers when they come to us. They want to know what the success rate is, how many couples. Do you find that? And how do you approach that with people when they want to know?
I love that question, and success has changed so much in my mind over 32 years. Right now, success for me is at the end of the year, I look at all the people who invested money with me, whether it's a $300 coaching consultation or matchmaking services at a much higher level, and I look and see which of those people, when I check my gut, would be happy that they made that investment.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I look for. And when I'm looking to answer that question, I know that finding relationship is the goal for so many of the people who come to us. And the sad news about it is, you know this, Abby, we can't promise relationship.
I wish
Sadly,
we could. Oh.
I know. And the thing is, we can't even promise second dates. We do the very best we can to introduce our clients to the most fitting candidates that we can line up for them. And we hope and pray that everything goes well, don't we?
Oh my God. I always send a little thought, prayer, vibe, whatever you want to call it, and every date that goes out that I hope it goes well. Bare minimum, I hope they just have fun together, regardless of what the outcome is.
Fun is a big bonus if they can have fun on that first date. I always hope that
Yeah.
each introduction will provide at least like a good quality experience for both of them, that they brighten each other's day, or that they leave each other better than they found each other, and that they would have learned something. And
Hmm.
sometimes what we learn is hard to learn, like, well, maybe I'm shooting out of my league, or, well, okay, I'm really into him, but I don't know if he's into me. And we have to deal with that. But if we're learning more every time we go on a date, then it's worth it.
Exactly. And it's interesting because I judge success kind of similarly to you as well. Because I have some people, you probably see this because you do a good amount of coaching, that come to me and have zero dating experience. And to say, okay, in 3 months, in 6 months, I'm going to be in a relationship and be married is a lot. So sometimes
Yeah.
it's just go meet people and figure out what it is you like and don't like and how to be on a date.
And especially, I look for people, if I'm going to be working with anybody over a stretch of time, whether it's a coaching client or a matchmaking client, and matchmaking includes coaching big time,
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking for somebody who's naturally growth oriented, who wants to know if they have blind spots. What are they? And the feedback that you and I get from post date, Mondays, we're recording on a Monday, and Monday's the day that it all comes in. And I'm looking for common patterns. If somebody is consistently not getting that second date, what would the reason be? Do we see any patterns? And if so, are they open to talking about it? I kind of like to make them beg for the feedback. It's like, I don't want to shove it down their throat. How come I didn't
Yeah.
get the date? Well, I think I know. Might be hard to hear. Are you sure you can handle it? And make them beg for it.
Right. And that feedback can be so valuable. I think that
Yeah.
honestly might be one of the best parts of working with a matchmaker, that you actually get that insight. Like I had a guy over the weekend, talked to him today. It's a Monday. And, the woman said that she felt like she didn't get to talk enough or share enough on the date. She was open to seeing him again, but it was great feedback to say, listen more than you talk next time. Active listening is
Yeah.
an important skill.
There's this one piece of feedback that I was reluctant to share because I was afraid my client would blow a gasket.
Oh,
The
no.
the piece that I wanted to share was that the women that he's typically attracted to and thinks are ideal for him, those women tend to think, he's just a little old for me, Julie. Seems old, acts old, looks old. I don't care that he's successful and all of that. To me, he feels a little bit like my father. Now, I had to find the words to share that. But the fact that I was able to share it in the way that he didn't just, slam the phone down and write me a bad Yelp review. And more importantly, the fact that he was able to receive it and digest it and think about it, what that brought about was a greater willingness on his part to accept introductions from women who are a little bit more age appropriate for him. And that's how he's dating now. He has
Wow.
morphed into a guy who will date somewhere close to his own age, and that's new. It was important. He needed to have it happen. He'd been dating improperly for 20 years.
Oh, yeah. And so glad that he found you and could figure that out, because now he has the potential to really connect with someone, it sounds like.
I think so. That was one of the pieces of feedback that I picked up this morning. He's on date number 3 with a woman who he would have turned down a year ago.
Oh, wow.
So this
That's
is
really cool.
progress. Yeah, this is progress.
It really is. And like you were saying, of initially vetting those clients, that they're open to feedback and growth oriented. We both are very like minded in that, because there are people I've worked with where if I would have said something like that, they would freak out and never talk to me again.
Yep. Yep. As the longer you're doing this work, Abby, the more you'll carefully choose your clients. And if ever you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning worried about somebody, it's usually not a good thing. And you'll know not to take that type of person again. Do a
Right.
coaching consultation, send them on their way, and have them come back when they're actually ready to listen. Because we are not genies. We can't just pull the rabbit out of the hat, can we?
That would be nice, though. If you ever figure that out, let me know.
Yeah, I've got it all figured out. In my next life, I'm going to be, you can see this because we're doing a video. This is who I'm going to be in my next life. It's this genie lady, and she just holds her heart, her hand out with the heart on it, and every client's going to pay $100,000, and we will have 100% success rate, and we're going to do so much good with all that money.
I love it. Even your dog's getting excited.
Yeah, this is Toby. Toby is he lives in my office now because this is the closest door to the outside. So,
nice.
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about working from home. And most of the matchmakers during COVID, if they hadn't already set up their offices at home, most of us are working from home now. And I think it is a much more, let's just say, soothing is the word I want to use. It's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you can have your dog just in your lap. Hey, we welcome animal visitors on this podcast for sure.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
So I
didn't tell you it was Julie and her dog coming on your podcast today.
2 for 1. I love it. And I wanted to go back to something we were talking about at the beginning, because I think it is really interesting to get your perspective. I'm new to this world. You have seen a lot of things that I have not gotten to experience yet. And I'm curious, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the matchmaking industry from when you started? I know you said people didn't collaborate as much, maybe as one. But what are some of the good changes? What are some of the things that maybe have been challenging?
I think most of the changes have been really good. Very common now is for matchmakers to do what you did when you started your company, which is you created a database, the technology tools that will enable you to privately inventory people. So somebody can find your website and register, or you can meet this person at the car wash and go home and sit at your desk and register this person and begin filling out a profile, which is all private. And it means that it's inexpensive and efficient for us to build our database. I call it my stable of stallions and my fields of fillies. It's like we need to have
I love it.
A ton of women. We need to have a ton of men, because by the time we're done drilling down, if we're looking for a Jewish person or a Catholic person in a particular age group who wants to have children, who's cool with cats at home, who's all right with somebody who's liberal politically, all those things matter. And the more specific somebody is, like I was on the phone earlier today with a woman who's 5'11" and will only consider men who are 6'2" and taller. And so she's thinking that a matchmaker will be able to help her with that. And I said, actually, the opposite. No matchmaker is going to have a plethora of men who are 6'2" and taller, who are also interested in a tall woman. So, or somebody who there was a gentleman I talked to last week who is this normal Caucasian white guy who is only attracted to exotic, like Brazilian women. He's just got a particular type. And so I said the same thing to him. Yes, it's fine to get registered with matchmakers. I don't recommend that you spend a ton of money on one. In order for a guy for matchmaking to work for a guy like that who's really specific about a look or a certain thing, maybe a guy's 53 and he wants to have children and he doesn't want to meet anybody over 35. Whoa, that's tough, right? But we get that. So maybe it could happen for him, but he'd have to hire a matchmaker at a very high level who would have the resources to go to all the rest of the matchmakers and say, who do you have? Who do you have? Who do you have? So it's almost like the people who are easiest to match are the people who have the most open-minded perspective in terms of who would be an acceptable candidate. And the more specific they are, the more challenging it is. So it's great that we have these databases. I think that matchmakers are doing more events. I watched our friend Lisa Amador, who just is creating an online speed dating thing, not just for her people in Santa Barbara, California, but all over.
Nice.
These are new things. I did a conversational quickies event with Meetup in the Park. Just couple of Sundays ago in Beverly Hills. I had never
Hmm.
done it before, and it was a huge success. I can't wait to do it again.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah, we do a ton of events in Denver, as you know, too. But I can't believe you've hosted 500. That's a lot of
Yeah, and
events.
they're all on my website. Actually, all the earlier ones are on my website at julieferman.com. You can just go to events and scroll all the way down to the very
Yeah.
beginning in 2002. And, I'd just rent out a theater and I would sell the tickets, and I had to carefully balance men and women. And doing events like that forced me to get very creative to make sure I could create that gender balance. So I'd call anybody, Abby, I'm glad you're coming to the event. Listen, you'll get huge brownie points with me if you can find a really great guy that I don't know yet to bring him or invite him. We call that recycling for the sisterhood.
Oh, I love it. I actually had that happen at a recent event. We did a wine tasting for the 50 and older crowd. And there was a woman who was like, I have a couple guys I want to invite, but they're both guys I went on dates with. They're just really great, not a fit for me. And I'm like, I will send them a free ticket. Come on down.
That's exactly right. The guys are much harder for us to find. In my database, we've got 36,000 people who have registered privately with me in these 20 years.
Oh
Two-thirds are women. We girls are much easier to find.
my
And the
God.
men, we gotta get very creative. And yes, that's the secret. What you just said, Abby, is so beautiful. If people are out there dating, most first dates are one date wonders. Am I right?
It's so true. And if people are listening, remember that. That's such a great quote from today.
It's just two people hanging out together for an hour, trying a hat on to see if it fits. And if it doesn't, which is most of the time, how can we spin it so that it's of
Hmm.
value for both of us? Can I tell you a cute story about a guy that
Yeah.
I met named George when I was a single girl in Kansas City?
Oh, please share. Yes.
I love this guy. Well, first off, how I met him is because his father tried to pick me up at a Chamber of Commerce event. I was like 25, and this older guy who's clearly in his 50s is hitting on me. And anytime that happens, as women, we should always just be friendly, warm, deflect it playfully, but not admonish the guy. Don't make the guy feel bad. He can't help it who he's attracted to. But anyway, we
Right.
had a nice little dialogue, and I said,
Yeah.
well, he said, you want to go out and have a drink sometime? And I said, well, I'm kind of in my 20s and I'm looking for marriage and babies. And I'm guessing you might have already done that. and, and he laughed and he said, yeah, actually I have. I got two kids. And he shows me pictures of his sons. And I'm like, lovely sons. And he said, maybe you want to meet one of my sons. And I said, that might actually be more appropriate now that
That's
I think about it.
awesome.
So he introduces me to his son, George. George and I became friends. We never were romantic. He always kind of had the hots for me, and I didn't really have the hots for him, but I knew that we should be friends. We both loved the opera. We loved outdoor stuff, walking dogs, everything related to food and music. So we
Hmm.
just kept on doing things together. And later on down the road, he introduced me to his cousin, and his cousin was actually plenty adorable, and we had a nice little romance.
Oh,
So if I
hey.
had blown him off, I never would have gone to those cooking classes, never would have gone to those ballets, and I never would have got to meet cousin Tom.
Right. And it just that whole story, which I love, by the way, it just goes to show you never know where you might meet someone or run into someone. I think we all, are kind of afraid a lot to approach someone or if someone approaches us to really pursue it. But I find people who have most success are just open to anything and everything and just seeing where it leads.
Yes, and also being very good at initiating and responding. The flirting thing, oh goodness, we need to be flirting much more than we ever have, especially because the COVID thing and the masks shut some people down. And then also because of the whole Me Too movement, really good guys who have a lot of respect for women are telling me that they are very uncomfortable approaching in the ways that they always did
Yeah.
because they don't want to be disrespectful. So all these women who are just waiting for some guy to initiate an approach and smile at her first, they are missing the boat. We have to smile, initiate, turn the cab light on, invite conversation, and we have to be courageous enough to say, so fun to meet you. Here's how to find me. Let's stay in touch. If women
Yeah.
aren't doing that, they're missing the boat.
Right. It is really tough. Even I was out with some girlfriends this weekend, one of them single, and we're in, a sea of single men at a brewery. And I'm like, oh, hey, why don't you go talk to that guy? He looks cute, or that guy. And she's like, I'm scared. And I'm like, okay, I'm the matchmaker. I'm just going to do it for you. And guess what? Now she has a date set up for next week because I'm just there saying, hey, you want to come talk to my friend? So either get that really outgoing friend, hire a matchmaker, or go talk to him yourself.
We should all be developing those skills, and it's not just for dating, but for everything in life.
Yeah.
And if the secret is so simple, it just takes some practice to have our focus out there with the other person. So it's not about, I'm going to go over and talk to that guy to see if he's interested in asking me out and having a date. No, how can I make that guy over there laugh? What can I do to brighten that guy's laugh? And when you think of it that way, how can I tickle that guy? How can I do something that's going to make him laugh? It's a place of giving that changes the energy completely.
Right. Yeah. And it's like there doesn't have to be this pressure of, oh, if he doesn't ask for my number, then I'm a total loser. I'm never going to find anyone. Like you said, most first dates are one and done. I would agree. That's the majority of them. But then you find that one where you like that person. So, one question, Julie, I wanted to ask you is, when you do get clients that get into that place where they maybe are starting to feel a little hopeless or they're not feeling as excited as when they first started, doing matchmaking, how do you help them through that?
I think it's along the lines of what we've been talking about, framing expectations. And I think it's important, this as a matchmaker, we have to help our clients frame their expectations from the very beginning. And I try to help them frame it from the attitude of, we're going to have an enjoyable, fruitful, growth-oriented dating journey. You're going to meet a lot of great people. Let's see if one of them is somebody you want to keep, who wants to keep you too. And if there's that sort of lull where they're getting discouraged or they're getting, they're beginning to wonder, was this a good decision? And it happens during dating, whatever the vehicle is, whether it's Match.com or going to a series of meetup groups, working with the matchmaker, there's always those peaks and valleys. And to just look inside to say, okay, what's my part in this? In what way am I making this more difficult? Sometimes the answer to that question is, well, I had an expectation that I was just going to instantly meet my person. And then you can have a nice little laugh over that.
Right.
And reframe it. I remember meeting a psychic when I was in my 20s. I was about 25 or 26, and I met her through my church. And she either had the gift or she didn't, but this particular moment in time, she had it. So we all lined up, paid $100 each just to go and see her on a Saturday afternoon. And she told me, because I was so busy trying to find my guy, 25, 26, she said, Julie, you are going to find your guy. It's not going to be for a while. You are going to have children. You're going to have 2 boys, but it won't be for a while. And she gave me all these predictions. Every single one of them came true. And I was so bummed when she told me that I wasn't going to be for a while. I'm like, no, don't make me do
You're like,
dating
I want
another
it right
5 years.
now.
Yeah. And something about that, even though it was hard to hear, for me, whether it was true or not, who knows if anything a psychic tells us is actually going to come true or not. But it helped me to kind of like, okay, maybe this is going to be a longer road than I thought. Let's make sure that we're enjoying the ride along the way. And that's when I built all the friendships with my girlfriends in Kansas City. And we started creating these really fun singles events that I still do with people to this day. And maybe it was because I knew I was going to have to survive the next few years, or I suspected I might, and that I wasn't going to be in a partnership and I was going to have to make my own gravy. And so we did.
I like it. And it's like, I hope that more people can have that perspective. If you're feeling like, oh, it's going to be some time, it's okay. Because everyone's journey is different in love. I can never say that enough on this podcast.
It's really true.
So a couple of things I wanted to ask you that I think people will really like to hear the answers to these. So number one is, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes women are making in dating today?
The biggest mistake that women make today in dating is comparing the real live suitor, the guy who's knocking on her door. Abby, you're adorable. I want to have a date with you. You're my fantasy girl. I can't wait to take you out to dinner. When we compare, yes. So when you have a real live suitor like that, the biggest mistake we make as women is we're comparing him not to all the other real life guys in the world, but to the fictitious image that we have in our mind of who fantasy guy is. And, a lot of the dating coaches and coaches of all kinds to say, get your vision board going, and get your pictures. And, we're crystallizing in our mind a fictitious human. And if we can discipline ourselves to look for not the red flags, but the green flags. If we can see a red flag and look at it closely and say, well, maybe it's just pink. Maybe it's not red. Maybe it's a little orange, but it's not really red. To look at the real live person and then to have distilled down what are our most important critical criteria. For me, when I was single, one of the most important critical criteria was the guy needed to want marriage and family. And if he didn't want that, it's totally cool. You go play over there. I don't have all the time in the world. So that, and then also, instead of how much money is the guy making, what I wanted to know is that he was responsible, conscientious, and good with money, the type of person who earns more than he spends. Because a guy with those qualities is going to end up with enough money down the road because he's got good habits and discipline about money.
Right.
Those are the things that my coach helped me crystallize. So when we're looking at candidates, to look for evidence of the key criteria. The other thing I wanted was shared passions, a couple of things that we both really love to do. And if you know what your critical criteria are, it shouldn't be more than 3 or 4 things. And every time a guy wants to ask, I mean, seriously, it's okay if they come to us with a list of 150 qualities and characteristics that they would love to see. It's fun to brainstorm in that way, as long as we know that that's really what it is. But I'm going to make people, and I know that you do too, Abby, I'm going to force them to choose their most important ones and look for evidence of those things. And the guys that show up interested in you, intrigued with you, attracted to you, who have, it looks like those criteria, those are the guys to give that second date to and the third date to. And if people are doing dating that way, if women are doing dating that way, they will succeed.
I totally agree, because sometimes we focus on so many things. It's just like, okay, he has to be 6'2", or he can't be bald, or, all these physical things, which I can't let anyone be in that top 3 list. None of those things could be in that top 3 list.
That's right.
So yeah, write down your top 3 if you have not done it yet, or contact one of us to help you figure it out.
And the lady I was on the phone with who is saying, she's 5'11" and really wants a guy who's 6'2" or taller. It's not the end of the world if she wants to make that height criteria one of her top 3, but if she really does, then she's going to have to get busy and get very proactive. You know what percentage of men are 6'2" or taller, Abby? Do you know?
I thought 6 feet and taller is 12%, right?
Exactly. It's like 12, 13%. And 6'2" or taller is like 3.8%. So all these women who come to us, well, I like to wear my shoes because blah, blah, blah. Yeah, what's more important? Our shoes. And actually, guys don't care. Guys don't care if she wears her shoes and she's 2 inches taller than he is. He doesn't care. She cares. So what's more important, are stupid shoes or having love in our life?
Right. Yeah. If that's that important, get on all the dating apps, pay for the premium subscription, and filter the crap out of that for 6'2" and taller.
And actually, do you know one relationship that made it or didn't based on how tall the guy was?
I do not. Do you? Because you had a few more than me.
Nope. I do not know one that made it or didn't. And actually, what's really sad is that the qualities and the characteristics that are often dumped on us, like I want this, 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 and this, so many of those qualities are not the qualities that will sustain a relationship. I like to, when we really boil down critical criteria, almost always for a woman, it will be something related to integrity or character. She wants to know that she can count on her man. And for guys, almost always there's something along the lines of sweet, kind, loving, or the fun factor. It's not about, does she have the best boobs in the room? No, it's not about that. Is she sweet? Is she kind? Is she loving? And do we have fun together? So those are the qualities to nurture within ourselves.
Oh, totally. And, I think too, it's like those shared values is what I see as the biggest determiner of success in a relationship, not height. You can always get a step stool and grab something off the top shelf. You'll live.
That's it. Values, shared values and shared passions. Those are the things. And especially in this world that we're living in right now, there's so much divisiveness. We never had to, as matchmakers, ask people where they are on religion, on politics, for example, we always asked about religion. We always asked
Yeah.
who wants to make babies and who doesn't, who will date somebody outside of their own ethnicity. We needed to know that. But now we have to ask about politics. And what I'm really looking for is not who's on the right or who's on the left, who believes what. It's how much tolerance do they have? And the more opinionated and the more intolerant somebody is, the more difficult they are to match. I know you can relate to this.
Oh my God, yeah. And I was curious, that was another thing I wanted to ask you about. Do you feel like it's been like very recently you had to start asking about politics, or when did that shift?
I did not add it to my questionnaire till about 2 years ago.
Oh
And
wow.
I noticed that a year or two before that, I found myself asking on every single phone interview, every single Zoom interview, I would ask because I think it's during the Obama years, there were a lot of people who were starting to get restless. And then during the Trump years, well, it just, what happened happened. A lot of people
Hmm.
just hated that particular persona. And then just all the divisiveness came about. So now, really, that's what I'm screening for is intolerance. Um,
Right.
I'd say probably 70% of the people I talk with are really reasonably tolerant. But the
Hmm.
30% on either side of that bell curve who have no ability to listen or respect for a different point of view, they just want their own opinion validated. Those are the people that I literally will not take them on as clients, not matchmaking clients. Won't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that totally makes sense because having an open mind is one of the key things to this whole process. And
And it speaks well for their ability to have a good relationship because in
right.
relationship, we're going to have all kinds of conflict. We're going to have
Hmm.
all kinds of days when we don't agree with each other. How do we manage that? So it's kind of a nice opportunity for people during this sort of difficult political and cultural environment that we practice our ability to listen with curiosity, understand another person's point of view, even if it means that we realize we couldn't possibly be together because our values are different, but can we respect this person?
Right. Because I think there are a lot of couples out there that probably have different political views and do just fine. Maybe they just
Completely.
don't talk
My
about
husband and
it.
I do not always align on this stuff. And what I really love to do though, this is kind of a solution for how to do it, how to be in a relationship with somebody with different uh, religious, religious or political philosophies, is if it's politics and you're getting ready to go in to vote, I like to ask my husband to look at um, the whole ballot and
Hmm.
make his choices and let me see. And if there's something that he wants me to know, like, oh, I want to vote for this guy because of this, and this, I want to know. And then I'll study what he has to say. And then when I go into that little booth, it's just between me and the man upstairs who I actually vote for. And I don't have to tell him either.
Right. It's
What's the
like,
point? Why
yeah,
tell him and just upset him? I did my homework, I paid attention, I studied up, and I chose what I chose.
exactly. And it's like if you are that person on dating apps who's putting your political views out there, you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage. Just quick note.
Yep. Well, if for people who are on seriously one side or the other, they should be
Yeah.
hanging out with their kind and really making the difference that they want to make in the world together with their activism and supporting the causes that they support. One of my favorite couples, he was a really shy guy, and we were looking for things that he could do that would force him to get out and meet people because he's kind of geeky and nerdy and does a lot of gaming and stuff. And I said, listen, why don't you pick? I gave him like 10 different uh, charity things that he could do. And he
Hmm.
picked Habitat for Humanity. He started doing this on Saturdays. And the woman that he met is somebody that he met while learning how to do drilling and hammering and sawing and all of that. And they're together.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
I love that. That's super
Yeah.
cool. I might steal that one from you. That's a great idea.
And another couple, their very first date, she doesn't like restaurant dates and she just thinks they're boring and she doesn't like to see the guy put that much, monetary effort into
Yeah.
dating. And so they went to a soup kitchen together and it was close to Thanksgiving and they went to the soup kitchen and helped get ready for the Thanksgiving thing. And then they actually went on the Thanksgiving day and served people together and
Wow.
they are still together. There's something about combining passions, things we care
Right.
about how many people do we know who met through church? And it isn't just from sitting in a pew in a church. It's by getting involved, helping with some kind of a potluck, getting involved at some level with the church community.
Right. Yeah, finding that common ground sometimes can be everything. I know I strategically try to do that with events, where we had an event at a bookstore last week. So everyone who's there already likes to read. If you haven't read in a while, you're probably not coming. And there's probably more intellectual, all those different things. So we try to have interesting niche events where you already have something in common with everybody.
I'm so happy that you're in Denver. You are only like 4 or 5 hours north of me. I spend most of my time in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so many of the people in my world here in Santa Fe go up to Colorado to play, as do my husband and I. So I don't want to have to build a dating solution in Colorado. And now I don't have to, because Abby already did it.
Yay. I'm so glad.
So cool. It's so cool. And I'm really happy that you're as young as you are, because you have a bright future in front of you, and all the people that you're meeting today. Yeah. I mean, here you are 20 years from now, those people, some of the people that you interviewed this week are going to still be single, believe it or not. And you won't know who they are.
Heart. Yeah.
And so many of them will be off in relationships. Some of them will find a relationship. It'll be so happy, and somebody will die and they'll end up back in your arms. They will get divorced. I just had one of my favorite clients, and they just spent 15 years together, and they decided, okay, we're done with this run. And they're carving out their lives separate from each other now. And I got both of them back in my community, and here we are.
Wow. That is crazy. I have one divorced couple where I work with both of them, and it's very interesting, to say the least.
It was so cute. I had my father died of colon cancer. And so, yeah, it was a long time ago. I was like 27 or something. And just because we're seeing each other, now you can see Mom and Dad and me at our farm. We were raising Black Angus cattle. And Dad was just a fun guy. And he drank too much, smoked too much. And I think it was the charcoal briquettes every night, with all that charcoal coming into the meat every night on the grill. I'll never know for sure. But I always went in and got my colonoscopies starting at age 40, because he died from this. And we moved to California, and you got to pick a doctor off of a list. How do you pick a doctor?
Right.
The name off of a list. Well, his last name was Kind. And I thought, I think I want a kind gastroenterologist. So I picked him. Turns out the guy's single. He's this great guy, looks like a young Jeff Daniels. And I put him on a date. He becomes my client. I put him on a date, and they fell in love over air hockey at the Santa Monica Pier.
Wow.
He's like a big kid. So yeah, we got them married. They were together for a long time. At the end, they didn't stay together. They're still best friends. She still manages his accounting and his books and all of that. But I got them both back, and then I got them both placed again.
Oh my God, that's too funny. I can't wait until I have those stories too. But
you will. And if we're always looking for the learning opportunity and the contribution opportunity every day that we sit at our desks, and with every introduction we make, you will be happy doing this 20 years from now.
Oh, I hope so. I hope the Ghosted podcast will get to 1,000 episodes. We're almost at 100, so we're getting close.
So here's what I want to know about that. Are people doing less ghosting because you have this podcast?
That is a good question to ask. I will say, because of my matchmaking company, people are definitely doing less ghosting. That's actually one of the rules in my contract they have to sign. So what would you say the most common words that people choose for why they don't want a second date? Like the words that they would share with the other person. What's the best way to say you're a nice guy, but? Right. One of the things I always use, because I always do the post-first date breakup if needed. And I always say, she just wasn't feeling a romantic connection. It was more of a friend connection. Maybe they just weren't feeling the connection. Maybe there was something specific that came up where I'm like, she was a little turned off by something that won't hurt someone's ego fully. But I know I do have a template. And if you're listening, I'm happy to send you this template where you can just say, hi, insert name here. Here's why it won't work out. Because I would rather you copy and paste that than ever ghost someone. So if you need that template, text me 303-842-4762. We'll put it in the show notes. You can have the template too.
Beautiful.
Right, because ghosting sucks. I'm sure that's a big rule for you too, that cannot happen.
It's just disrespectful. It's discourteous. And you're going to see that person again at Sprouts or at Trader Joe's,
Right.
at the library event. They're not going to want to come to your library event because they're going to be afraid somebody that they ghosted and didn't part with in a dignified, respectful fashion might be there too, and it's going to be awkward. But if you find the words, almost always the words are something as simple as, I'm so glad we met. I don't know if it's a romance thing. It feels more like a friendship thing. Let's keep each other in each other's phones, and I'll invite you to my parties. You invite me to yours. Who knows? Maybe your college roommate's going to be my guy. Maybe my next door neighbor will be your girl.
Right. You never know. So it's like, don't write anybody off. If there's a huge thing that happens that you totally dislike, by all means, write them off if there's lots of red flags. But usually, Julie and I can vet people pretty well where hopefully you're not going on that horrific of a date.
And if there is some kind of a red flag, something that's really not okay, we need to know about it.
Yes.
Because we need to make sure that that person isn't going to be receiving further introductions. If it's really, if it's offending other people, we need to know.
Right. And
it's good to communicate. We have to practice these communication skills. We're going to need them in relationship.
And I know we could probably go part 2, part 3. We have so many things to talk about. But just to be respectful of your time, I always like to end with a piece of advice, maybe that you haven't gotten to give yet, some parting words of wisdom for our single listeners, anything that you would like to share.
I would say that the most important thing is to know who you are, know what you have to offer, like get very clear about not only your top 3 critical criteria of the person you hope to meet, but what are the 3 things that you bring to the party that are special about you? And keep those front of mind all the time, because this is your why you're worth it. Why are you worth it? Because your friends know that you are trustworthy, you make them laugh, you are always there when they need you. What are the reasons why your friends stick around you and your family members love you even though they've seen you at your worst? What are those reasons? And keep those top 3. It's like your value items, your elements of appeal. Keep those front of mind and know that you're worth it. You're worth being in a relationship with. And keep your humor, no matter what. You've got to be able to laugh at every little thing that happens.
Right.
One more little piece of advice is whatever our stories are that are hard to tell. It could be a bad breakup. It could be something in our family. It could be something about our character that's difficult to be with. Whatever the thing is that's hard to talk about, find a 15-second version of that story. Practice it, a 30-second version of that story, so that you can get through those difficult conversations without it turning into a 20-minute soap opera. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh boy, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I had a client bring up one of those on a second date, and then the lady was like, "Well, no."
We've all had stuff. We all have, some people will call it baggage, history, whatever it is. But find ways of framing challenging conversations, whether it's about politics or religion or anything in your family history that was rough. Find the short little version of it, and then it'll be a little bit easier to manage those conversations on dates.
Right. I love it. You're even podcasting as you get up and open the door. Multitasker.
Well, this dog is a very loud bark. It's getting close to his dinner time, and I think you wanted me to know about it.
Oh, that's good. That's important. Well, we'll let you go, get to the dog dinner time. And before you get to go, though, please share, where can people connect with you? Where can they follow you? Where can they listen to your podcast? Give us all the info.
Yeah, definitely listen to the podcast. It's the Cupid's Coach podcast, and we've done over 100 episodes. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. We get to talk about people without revealing their real names, or we get to call out all that behavior that isn't working with some humor and an orientation around personal growth and development. My website is julieferman.com, and I'm based in both Los Angeles and Santa Fe, New Mexico. So get registered with me if you aren't already, or just be sure you're fully registered with Abby, because we collaborate.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Abby.
Thank you, Julie. Have a great day.
Thanks.